Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 14th, 2023 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission members are appointed by the Select Board in order to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaw governing the wetlands. Two matters of formality. The first is we're in a public session of an open meeting law. So we invite everyone to speak, ask questions, make comments, but we do ask that you identify yourself because a record is being kept. And the second matter of formality, we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan. And I'll just go through, I'll scroll through when I'm looking at Hans. Can you go next?
Hans Fanlingen.
Arthur?
Arthur Doyle, member.
Wendy?
Good evening, I'm Wendy Garpo.
Ingrid?
Ingrid Bating.
Todd?
Todd Hamilton, member.
All right, I don't see Tom Palmer, but I expect him to join us, but we have our quorum, so we're underway. Before we begin, I'd like to go through the agenda because some members of the public may be waiting for an agenda item that may in fact have been continued. So if you look at your agenda, number 5, 9 Myers Lane, at the request of the applicant, has been continued until March 14th. Number 6 on the agenda, 175 Governor Stoughton Lane, is continued at the request of the applicant until June of 2023. Number 7 and 8, both at 1259 Brush Hill Road, Lot C and Lot D, have been continued at the request of the applicant until March 14th. Number 9 on the agenda is 648-652 Canton Avenue at the request of the applicant. That matter has been continued until March 14th as well. Under additional business, number 10, we were going to address under additional business, at least talk about the fact that we're going to have an extra meeting this month to hear from the school building committee, and they will address their proposed land swap in order to accommodate a new building in the area of Guile Road. There has been, in compliance with the open meeting law, a publication of that meeting, which will be tomorrow night via Zoom, and it will be at 5 p.m. tomorrow. There will be a presentation by the school building committee, and we will meet, the Conservation Commission, will meet in public session. The public is invited to listen in, participate, to ask questions or make comments. That will be tomorrow. So I put that under the additional business, not to exclude other items that we might address later tonight. So with that said, if anybody was waiting for one of those items to come up, I've announced the continuances. So we will go to number 1 on the agenda, which is the Edge Hill Road, Collycott and Cunningham area, and the applicant is the town of Milton. And I'm not sure who's presenting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Johnson. I had expected Marina Fernandez, the town engineer, to also be here to represent this project, but I'm happy to jump in while we wait for her because she's not here right now. So
you can start if you could just give us a brief overview.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Jennifer Johnson. I'm a professional civil engineer with Niche Engineering in Boston, and we've been supporting the town of Milton on this new stormwater retrofit project, which is located behind Cunningham and Collycott schools on Edge Hill Road, 80 Edge Hill Road. So what our plan was for this evening was to provide you with a general overview of the project and answer any questions. And Marina had also mentioned that there was potential for a future site visit. So I think if you'd like to discuss that as well. But if that sounds good, I'm happy to share my screen and provide you with an overview of the project.
That would be perfect, Jen. Thank you very much.
All right, no problem. So let me get situated here. Are you able to see my screen? It is a rendered plan.
Yeah, there it is. You're on. You got it.
All right, great. So, and actually maybe Marina was going to give the quick overview. So I just want to provide you with a better locus map here. I'm happy to do that. So for those who haven't visited this part of town.
Hi, Jen. I'm here. I just want to let you know that I'm here. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Why don't you jump in and give the intro? I was just pulling up on screen the aerial, and then I'll take over. When you're done.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Marina Fernandez. Thank you very much for having me here today. And Jen Johnson, she's our engineer consultant from Niche Engineering. They're out of Boston, and they've been working with us on this design as well as permitting, and they will hopefully be helping us with construction oversight. So the project location is just behind Cunningham and Collicott School in that green space area between the school and on Pleasant Street. And it has an entrance from both what is called Mary Trail as well as Pleasant Street. Between two of the homes, there's an entryway on this public space. The site is owned by the school department, and it's currently just a wooded area. The project proposal here is to create currently there is a drain that runs, and Jen is going to go through much more in much more detail. There's a drain that crosses the site and goes underneath the site and collects the drainage area from upper on the watershed, and then it daylights onto Unquity Brook. The reason why this project came to us here in the engineering department is because the Neponset Watershed Association did a study back in 2016, which realized that the Unquity Brook has issues with water quality during wet weather events. So basically, every time it rains, there's a spike on water quality indicators, and let know that, hey, the Unquity Brook has issues during the rain events. So basically, our underground piping is servicing us in a good sense because it's allowing for us not to have flooding, but it's also disservicing us because it's bringing with them all of the pollutants associated with runoff. So basically, those are things that are on the street already, and it gets picked up by that flush. So the goal of this that study was to then move forward and figure out which sites that are owned by public spaces, not public spaces, but that are owned by the town of Milton that could be redirected to have this, what is called best management practices.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, of course.
You had said that there was and we're familiar with the report card that the Neponset River gets each year, and they typically test for phosphorus, nitrogen, and E. coli. I see in your application that you're addressing the nitrogen content, the phosphorus content, and of course the total suspended solids. But I did not see any reference to E. coli. Is that an issue in this area, and does this project do anything to correct it?
So one of the things that got picked up by the rainstorm is E. coli from not human feces, but they are from animals. So we're talking about, your dog walker that didn't pick up a poop from the dog, and it's now made its way through the watershed. Yeah, this site will help with that, with those. It's not intended to help with sewer system overflows. We do not experience sewer system overflows here in town, There are occasional events, but those are handled through DPW, and there is a series of protocols that get activated once there is a sewer system overflow. I hope I answered your question.
You did. The only reason I asked the question is that I noted in section 6, pollutant removal calculations. It does address TSS, phosphorus, and nitrogen, but there is no reference in the chart to E. coli. And I didn't know if the system is not designed for it or it's not a problem.
No, I'm happy to answer that. So the system primarily uses infiltration, but there's also filtration components. And with the infiltration, we do expect it to remove bacteria as well as nitrogen, phosphorus, and TSS. So that is provided in the appendix where we have the more detailed pollutant removal calculation.
Okay.
Thank you,
John, you and I were thinking along the exact same lines. I just scribbled down a question here in my notes. Just solutes or bacteria as well. So you've answered the question regarding the solids, and you started to answer the question regarding bacteria. But I guess my question, I just want to take it one step further. So there's E. coli, but any other organisms in terms of bacterial growth or contamination, for example, runoff due to fertilizers can cause blooms of other microorganisms as well. So I'm wondering if you can address that aspect of it.
Sure. So I'm happy, actually, do you mind if I jump into a little bit more detail about how it's designed, and then we can talk about those pollutant removal processes?
Yep.
So kind of coming back from this image here, I'm going to show a plan that kind of zooms into this wooded area where we're proposing the proposed stormwater basin. And just to orient you here, we've got the school property and the driveway that wraps around the back, Pleasant Street up on the north side, and then Century Lane over here. The primary intent of this project is to utilize this existing woodland depression. It's already a low point located, as Marina said, right alongside the sewer and drain pipes. So it provides easy access for us to be able to divert the lower flows associated with that closed drainage system. So the plan right now, as shown here, is to create a diversion manhole along the existing system, send it to a water quality structure, which is going to be our first line of defense. It'll remove trash and larger sediments, things like that, before we even divert into this lower swale here that is going to flow into the low point that will remain a woodland condition, but will be able to absorb stormwater runoff.
Is that structure underground or is it above ground?
That's right. The structure is below ground. And there's 2 access manholes at the surface that will be able to be cleaned out.
So those are gross removal of gross contaminants, or whatever. Do you know what the size exclusion is of that step?
The size of the sediment to be removed?
Size exclusion. If there's, and what is the filtration like? If you could just,
it's not really intended to be a filtration system. It's more, I can even show you a detail of it if you really. I love getting into the details. So I'm happy to show you. It's kind of like a glorified sediment forebay, right? But we put it below grade because we didn't want. There are trails back there, so we thought it might be better to have this structure below grade. So it's really just a sedimentation chamber. That also will allow oils to float to the top before you get to that second step of treatment.
So it's not an actual size exclusion. It's just simply sedimentation. I got it.
That's right. Not like a hydrodynamic separator. Exactly. And so then water this is primarily from the closed drainage system, is going to take this treatment train. It will go down through this riprap swale and down into the infiltration basin. And the way that this plan right now is set up is that the town did go through and take GPS shots of the points where trees are located primarily within the limit of work. So there are trees obviously all over this green space. So I just wanted to point that out. But we did want to try to design the earth moving that is required to minimize as much impact as possible to trees. So the way that this basin will be created is by constructing this. It's about a 2-foot berm located on either end that kind of closes off that existing depression and allows water to pond within this woodland area.
I'm sorry, within the what area?
Within this woodland depression here.
Okay.
The soils actually are quite favorable within this low spot for infiltration. And so that will be the primary way that water is cleansed, is to be recharged back into groundwater. And then overflow and larger storm events will be collected through a beehive grate, which is kind of those large circular grates that have a nice trash rack on top. And then it will connect right back to the drainage system that runs along the pathway here.
So when you say ponding, do you expect, and I know a lot of the calculations were done with a 1/2 inch of water as sort of the model. But I also saw that you went through, 2 25, 50, 100-year storms. Do you expect water to be in this area that you've surrounded in blue as standing water?
So after a storm event, in the largest storm event, if we get up to what we call brim full condition, right? If the whole basin is full of water, it's anticipated to dewater within 72 hours, which meets the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook standards for these. So between storm events, it will dry out completely through infiltration, and then it also dewatering through this grate. But immediately following storms, it will have some standing water as it absorbs back into the ground.
Up to what depth? I know it depends on the storm event, but let's say 100-year storm.
So the bottom of the basin is at 47.5 and our top of berm is, 45.5 and 47.5. So with 2 feet max ponding depth.
And are you removing the trees, or are they just going to?
No, we're going to keep the trees in place. We want to utilize the existing woodland condition. So the plan is just to, you can see in the heavier black line here, this is the only area where earthwork is required within the woodland to create those berms. So we're going to minimize the tree removal as much as possible. You can see over here as well, the grading here that's kind of required to close off either end of the depression.
What's the likelihood, though, of, and maybe it's the same elevation, but what's the likelihood of survival of those trees if there's standing water there?
Like I said, it's only intermittent standing water following storm events. So we anticipate that it will dry out between storms.
I understand that, but do you have any calculations on whether or not those trees are going to survive this? I mean, essentially, you're directing water to an area that currently does not have, this is really a question, does it currently have standing water?
No, it does not have standing water. But Marina, I think, do you want to speak to that? Because I believe you had an arborist look at the site as well as part of our earlier efforts.
Yes. We did have an arborist come in and check out the site and also check out the plans for proposal. And there were no imminent dangers too, because we've had that question come up before as to whether or not having the standing water would kill the trees. We don't believe that these trees would be affected by the standing water. The letter from the arborist is on record, and I can certainly provide this committee with that letter. We went out with the arborist and had a site visit, so I can certainly send that to the group if you'd like.
Yes, that would be helpful, because survivability, that's a big deal.
John, I should let you know that I was the arborist.
Oh.
And Tom, what did you do calculations on this, Tom, in terms of?
No, I didn't do calculations, but I did walk the site and ID all the trees. And most of the ones in the blue area are Norway maples. And they're like a full canopy. And it is true that they will get doused with water more than they do now. But because it will drain away so quickly, I don't think it will be a problem for the trees. trees can certainly drown, but it takes them a while. And there won't be many storms that will produce standing water here.
Yeah, so that's the question is oxygen in the soil. If all the interstitial, spaces are filled with water, then there's no oxygen for the roots to gain access to. So you think
they're very thirsty soils. If you look at the test pit data, they did 2 test pits, one in the little blue wetland on the right and one inside the blue area. And in no case did they find a annual high water mark closer than 5 feet to the surface. And the soils themselves were very sandy.
Okay. Yep.
They're called loamy sand. So it's just very hard to get that area wet because it will drink up the water so quickly. In fact, I did inspect where the current swale comes down from the stormwater system at the school. And it's interesting that although that water, when it was running down the hill, the stormwater from the school property did erode a little swale through the sand, as soon as it hit the flat at the bottom, the swale disappeared because the running water could not run across the surface. It just got swallowed up. The swale vanished. So it was obvious to me that this is a very absorbent soil.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if there's high sand content, that all makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about how close does that? Can you just scroll down a little bit so I can see the extent of that blue dotted? Yes, that's perfect. I'm just wondering if there's going to be at least potentially standing water in this area. What's the elevation difference between that blue area that you've got encircled and the backyards of the folks on Pleasant Street? Which way is the land sloping? I don't see the topographical lines.
I'm glad you brought that up. It gives me a chance to talk about some of that.
46. Wasn't it 46? 46 was top of berm, right?
Yes, 47.5.
Yeah.
So 47.5 here. You can see there is an existing depression located in this abutter's backyard, which is down at 45 up to 47. So this is an existing low point. And we know that these folks see water. I'm not sure if they're in attendance this evening, but they were present at the public outreach meeting that was held last year as part of the earlier steps in this project. So the topography is such that there's a high point here as well. So water is kind of flowing down either towards this low point or towards our depression. And same on this side of the driveway, it kind of pushes down into this depression. So to answer your question, back here, you can see we have, we're going back uphill, 46, 47, 48, and then eventually up 49. So it's sitting up, these yards are sitting up a little bit from the anticipated flood depth or ponding depth of this basin.
And again, just to add to that point, if I may, the berm there, that it's shown, it is to protect what we had figured out, that some of the residents were having ponding on their backyard, potentially due to the runoff. So we're hoping that this project will remedy some of that ponding that's currently happening and divert all the water truly to where it needs to be, which is at our basin.
That's right. So as a result of that feedback that we received at the public meeting, we actually added in a new feature that I'm pointing out here. This is a crushed stone trench that's going to be located at the toe of the slope, but before you get to the existing depression that is within the abutter's backyard. So this crushed stone will act kind of as a French drain would around a home, right? It's going to absorb water, and there's a perforated pipe located within it that will discharge towards the basin. So now this water coming down the slope will no longer be entering this backyard. It will be diverted into the new stormwater feature. So that was the approach that we took to try and resolve or improve the condition for the abutter.
That makes sense. The abutter you're talking about is the one with the depression. Do you know the number of that house?
I do not know offhand.
Okay.
I can find out. I just spoke with the resident on 451 today, Pleasant Street. And then just for correction on the record, the butter that had the lowest depression that we're talking about, and I'll get the number in a second, was not in attendance at the public meeting we had and we walked, but her neighbor was, and she voiced that concern on her behalf. So
Just so you know, we're both on this call listening.
Okay.
oh,
Right.
thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, I had to make that correction. Do you know what number? I'm sorry, you must know what number it is then.
489.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, 489?
Yeah. And at one point in the last 2 years, we had over 1.5 feet of water in the backyard. Sort of an extreme event, but came up within about 8 feet of the back of the house. And that whole area behind 489, which is a funny sort of triangle shaped property right at the bend, that floods within, fairly regularly anytime there's any amount of heavy rain, particularly if there's a storm right after another, or during cold seasons when the ground is more frozen. So there is regular water accumulation all throughout that area. And it's not covered by the berm that looks like it's proposed. It cuts off right where most of the flooding into the backyards actually occurs. Oh no, up a little bit further with your cursor. Yep. So that house right where you are, and then up off, exactly. And the one up off to the right will also experience some of the water during more extreme situations.
But do you agree, though, that the berm will help protect your property and that, as we're looking at to the right?
So I've never spent any time off to the left, sort of beyond, where my property is, and in between. I'm sorry, not making sense. On the other side of the berm from where my property is. But, anytime I've gone out in the back of the house after heavy rainfall, that whole area off to the right-hand side of the berm collects water, and that water is also moving into our backyard. So I don't think that berm is actually going to protect us much.
Jen, do you agree with that, at least by design purposes?
I'm not sure where that additional flow. I mean, all I can speak to is the location of the existing depression, which you can see here is this 45 contour, which is primarily located in that yard, as well as kind of extending a little bit further to the north. And the intent of this crushed stone trench is to disconnect the rest of that watershed so that it's not flowing down into that location. You can see that here. It is true that there's additional water that may be generated by the rest of the watershed that might still get to his low point. But our intent was to disconnect as much as possible within the parcel that this project is proposed on.
Yeah, what we had heard at the meeting with the homeowners, it was that this was a condition that got worse after the school built a I believe they call it's like a park back there where that highest point is. So that was our intent. If that condition got worse when the park was built, we could build that berm and disconnect that area from flowing directly into these people's backyards and therefore using that water to go back into our basin.
The part that you're talking about, is that the synthetic turf area?
Yes.
I don't know if
yes, and so now also the swale that runs behind the school and collects the drainage system from the school area will also be disconnected from that low point by the construction of this berm, because now that will be directed to the basin, which has another discharge point away from that existing low point. So you can see we've tried to isolate that from the rest of the system.
Could I ask a question about to the right on the Century Lane side, please?
Sure.
So I apologize, I wasn't able to attend the first meeting, but I'm at 17 Century, and I know in my yard, I'm kind of new to some of this stuff, but
I'm sorry, Jonathan. Could you identify yourself, because we're trying to keep a record?
Yep, sure. My name's Jonathan Heelan. And I'm at 17 Century Lane. And
Great, thank you.
thank you. I have high water table in my area because it was pointed out to me with high tree roots and such. And in my basement anyway, I have a French drain and some 2 sump pumps, a battery backup, and I don't take in that much water anymore unless it's really, really bad. But my yard kind of slopes to my house, and I'm just wondering, you know, what type of I don't know. To me, it sounds like if we're now pooling the water and making it pond somewhere, it seems like it would just saturate the water even more. Maybe not necessarily on top, you know, running off, but underneath, which can, you know, obviously it flows how it flows. Is there any consideration to obviously for Pleasant, but for the Century Lane side as well when they do the work here? Are they trying to, I don't know, divert anything or do add a crushed stone French drain to, you know, keep it from going into the houses there?
Marina, or Jen, can you address that? Because I don't know which way the water is flowing. Is that the same watershed?
I can speak to that. I think, Mr. Johnson, I think you were speaking about the groundwater, and if I heard you correctly, you're concerned about that groundwater table being rising up and then therefore affecting your residents because you have all made all the right moves. You put the French drain around your property. You put those 2 sump pumps, which are collecting that groundwater that would otherwise be making its way into your basement. So the goal of this project really is to only infiltrate that first flush of water. That's the first, because the idea of a project like this, that is what has the biggest impact to the Unquity Brook. That first flush that has, you know, maybe some of the pollutants that can be treated very well in a situation like this and taken care through proper maintenance by DPW. That it's not necessarily going to rise up your groundwater really high. So basically what I'm trying to say is that this is not going to be soaking for, so if we have 100-year storm, this is not going to be taking in a 100-year storm. This is still only taking that first flush and then it stops, and then it's kind of like a bathtub. So once it hits the top, it will continue to use the existing drain system that you have always had in that backyard to flow that water onto Unquity Brook. I don't know if I can explain myself a little better.
Well, what's holding the water?
The berms around the berm around the basin holds the water up to an elevation, because that's the idea. You're treating that first flush, and then after that, if Jen, if you can scroll in, it has that little overflow. There you go, and then it drains back onto the drain system that it's been existing there, and you continue to take that water through. So again, if you have a 100-year storm, this is not trying to, our purpose is not to infiltrate a 100-year storm or a 50-year storm or 5-year storm, none of that. The idea is that first flush. You treat that first flush. Jen, if you can just maybe speak to that a bit more.
Sure. Yeah, it's the first half an inch of rainfall across the watershed that will be taken into the basin through the diversion structure. And as Marina mentioned, beyond that, it will continue to utilize the post drainage system. So it is a limited amount of water that would be directed here so that it does not have a major impact on the hydrology of the overall area. But, so to answer your question, I think what you're asking about, we call it in engineering groundwater mounding, right? Will there be any impact to groundwater from this project? And the answer is that we do not expect that to occur because it is a low dose of water being added.
But there's obviously digging and moving earth around when they do it, and it's kind of like anything can happen. It seems like when they do that, and not anticipating it to happen or not expecting it, or it shouldn't. Isn't I just wonder if now's the time to like, what if it does happen? What do me and some of the other neighbors do if now something got disrupted and it flows a different way or whatever? I just wonder if there's, since they're doing it, is there a way to head that off at the pass and kind of mitigate any problems for the houses?
I think that's a very fair question. So to that point, this is the engineering department doing this project, so we're not a developer that I'm going to go away. We're still going to be in town and dealing with this project. Jen will have oversight during construction, so this is not going to be a contractor that will go out there and just arbitrarily make mounds. We'll have an engineer oversight during construction, and we have a whole full bid package. They need to comply to those requirements in the bid package, otherwise they do not get payment. So if the elevation is off or there is during construction, we will be able to remedy right away, to no cost to you, no cost to the town, for them to make what is the planning document. Now, if there are any issues with the amount of water that you're getting after, let's say after a year, you have a high spring. Again, it's really difficult to compare a year with another year, but if you're seeing a lot more water, you certainly need to get a hold of our department, and we'll be working with you to see what other ways we can do to get that water out of your basement. Does that make sense?
Yes. If it's kind of it's wait and see, and maybe something could happen, and maybe nothing would happen. I guess I was posing the question, if it was looked at, if there was a way to mitigate it while people are back there, engineers, workers, people are thinking about this stuff. It would be great if they, maybe it's like, the time, to me, the time to potentially do it would be up front. I just feel like it would save work and time and money ultimately, but.
And it has been up front. There's been a whole year of design with Jen and Jen's group and hydraulic modeling. So this is not, we're not eyeballing this. This has been thoroughly through, and this is a project that has passed all the QA/QC checks, both internally to our department as well as niche engineering department.
Jonathan, the only other thing I can mention is that the way that this watershed divide lines up, it's such that the project is located kind of outside of the watershed that's impacting this row of homes. You can kind of, these are the contours here that you can see. And this water along this side on these residential homes is pushing towards it. So this project here is located outside of that direct impact. So it's a little bit different than what happened over here, right? Where this was an existing low point that was with. So I think.
Jen, do you have the map? Because I recall seeing that watershed map in your package.
I do have a watershed map.
That might give a good visual display of what you just said.
Sure, thanks. So here's the homes along your street and Pleasant Street to the north here. So the watersheds that are being absorbed by this project or directed to this project location, which is the blue line here, are these green boundaries. So you can see this is the other piece of woodland that's a little bit closer to that road, which is outside of the influence of this project. So that's how we designed it, right? Is based on this contributing drainage area.
Jonathan, does that make sense to you?
I'm trying. I'm getting some of it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Could we go back to the other picture? I want to point something out. The closer in plan. Do you see the wetland that's drawn in there with the little blue polygon? Remember, we were talking about the soils, how deep and sandy they are, and the annual high water mark of the groundwater was more than 5 feet down. When I was there and looking at that wetland, I said to myself, I don't know if I would map this as a wetland because I really can't find any wetland indicators, although there were a couple of wetland plants. But notice where it's placed in relation to all the contours. It's right at the bottom of the closest approximation of contours. In other words, the steepest area, it's right at the bottom of the steepest area. And if this house lot we're talking about has the same relation to those contours, doesn't it? Mr. Heelan's house is at the bottom of a steep slope. Isn't that so?
Is this your house up here?
Yeah, where the slope, you can see the contours are close together just uphill, and then they flatten out, and there are few of them. That's also true of where the wetland is, and it's also true of where the swale comes off the slope on the existing stormwater. So it's just a place where you have a built-in likelihood of water getting closer to the surface than in most of these very porous areas, because you're at a place where a slope ends. And just because water moves downhill, as it comes off the slope at the bottom, it tends to approach the surface a little more. That's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing about the previous statement that would say Mr. Heelan's lot seems to be out of the way of this drainage alteration we're proposing, but I would agree with him that he's in a place. If you look at all the lots on this slope, it's the lot at the bottom of the slope. It's likely to be on the receiving end of water. And so it's going to be sensitive, as he has explained.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Right. And can I jump to another issue related, obviously, but and that is on the O&M plan. I'm not sure what the town's plan is. I'm looking at section 3.2 of the stormwater operation and maintenance requirements. There's a question that's kind of still left there as to what the plan is for cleaning the catch basins. He was left as a question rather than as a statement as to what the O&M plan is.
I can answer that. So the town of Milton collects stormwater fees, as you all know, and those fees are used for several stormwater related maintenance around town. We have an annual contract with a third party that cleans our green infrastructure. They bid on a list of infrastructures, and they come in and they do the typical maintenance either twice a year or more often as we see necessary. So as we see, we're cleaning more and it needs more maintenance, it gets on the list and it will get cleaned as often. So the number of times, I believe that Jen has suggested in her report, twice a year minimum, but the actual amount of number of cleanings could be more with a minimum of 2. And again, it will be done by our third party service.
But it says 4, Marina. I'm reading here. It says inspect or clean catch basins 4 times per year. And then there's a question to you. So that's why I'm questioning.
I must have gone confused. I know there was a minimum, but I think the idea that we're trying to portray is that it can get cleaned more often, and it does not get cleaned by our DPW staff. It gets cleaned by our third-party provider.
And how are the inspections managed? So how do you determine if there's more or additional cleaning or?
So we have an environmental coordinator here in town, and she tracks the amount of growth and amount of trash that is picked up during that cleaning. So that indicates whether or not we need to, make it more often than the minimum amount that is being suggested by Jen and her team.
Yep, and in addition to that, the swale itself, the pretreatment structure and the infiltration trench will all require additional maintenance. That's part of the plan to make sure that the system will continue to function over time.
All right, but this would also be affected by the O&M plan for the Cunningham School, because that's where some of the pollutants are coming from, correct?
That's right. Part of the project, and I guess we can touch on this, we haven't talked about this part yet. There's the existing 2 outfalls from the school that I'm kind of pointing out here with my cursor that come into this existing swale that, as I mentioned, runs down the slope and into that depression area. This project is looking to enhance that swale to further promote pollutant removal and infiltration within this upper portion. Part of the project will also remove the accumulated sediment and debris from the swale as it stands right now. And then to build in some additional check dams as you work your way down the slope, because it is eroding a little bit, I think, in higher flows as you work down because it's pretty steep. So the intent here is to have check dams and to stabilize this area as it works down. We're not adding any new water there. We're just trying to manage that existing flow better. And so that swale will also promote additional pollutant removal and absorption into the ground before you even get down to the bottom of the hill where the depression is going to be. I just wanted to point that out for you.
Understood. This is kind of a I'm not sure it's an answerable question, but to the extent that the project is designed to improve the water quality in Unquity Brook and eventually into the Neponset River, is there any kind of a measure as to the efficiency of this plan once it's implemented? I mean, are you going to be able to, I know you can measure the solids removed, and eventually you can see what's happening in the Neponset River, but is there any way to measure the efficacy of this particular plan?
That's an interesting question, actually. Are you asking about if monitoring might occur with water coming in versus out?
Yes, right, right. What's going out? What's going out now, and what's going to go out after this is over? I'm not sure where you'd even capture it from. It might be some where Unquity Brook first daylights. I'm not sure where you'd measure from.
Like, I can't speak to, Marina, why don't you take it? And then, because I know we've talked actually about that a lot, about the potential for this project to really serve as public education tool and could also be worked into the school curriculum. But I'm not sure where that stands. So I'm going to let Marina take that.
Yeah. So, John, it's a difficult take for us to be monitoring the life of the project and capturing those actual TSS removes. But we are hoping that this will become part of the school curriculum. Currently fifth grade science has in the curriculum stormwater management. So we are envisioning that this may be a site that Neponset Watershed Association currently goes to this school and helps with the fifth grade science. So we are hoping that very much like other projects like this in neighboring communities, the children can come down and access the site. If any monitoring, John, happens, it'll be part of a study, maybe through research, R&D, but there are no requirements or plans to actually monitor the actual TSS removed.
Well, how is the site selected in the first place?
Well, I was actually mentioning that in the beginning of this presentation. The Neponset River Watershed Association did the study, figure out that Unquity Brook, it has a stormwater runoff issue. And then they followed up with the town of Milton with a study to select town-owned properties that could have its biggest bang for a buck, right? So we have the largest acres and the least amount of construction that are required to not repurpose, but to use the sites. And this was one of the sites that got selected. 5 sites were finalists in the town. One of the sites is you might all be very familiar with the current basin that is behind the police station. It's a double basin that has been constructed. I believe it was constructed in 2019.
Yes, we're well familiar with that.
Yeah. So it's part of the same study, John, and we're just going down the list. Sorry to interrupt.
No, John, I'll just say it's Dan Driscoll. It's like, excellent question, because it seems like in medicine, we talk about process measures and outcomes, right? So it's sort of a process measure, and you're asking about the outcome, right?
Yes.
And so it seems unusual you do this bigger project and not have a plan to test your outcome. Am I saying that correctly?
No, you are. And I know that they could easily say that, well, each year the Neponset River is tested for, as I said in the beginning, it's E. coli, phosphorus, and nitrogen, and they get a grade. And Unquity Brook flunked, or was a C- or something. It was pretty bad. And so that Unquity Brook needs to be cleaned. And this was one of several sites that were talked about. One was at Algerine Corner to pick up the pollutants coming off of Adams Street. This was a backup site to that plan. So I'm just wondering whether or not it was selected because there was an identifiable source for contamination or pollution. And if so, then is there any way to measure, is it coming out of the water at that point? It may have to wait until, 10 years from now and the Neponset River changes gradually. And it has, by the way. It's gotten much better over the last 20 years.
John, this is Arthur, if I may.
Yeah.
Part of the outcome will be whether or not there's a water quality improvement in Unquity Brook. My recollection is that the last report card from NEPRA gave Unquity Brook a grade of F, which is only one of a handful of waterways in the entire Neponset watershed area designated with the lowest grade possible. So with that type of a benchmark, after this work is completed, there would be ongoing monitoring through the water quality in Unquity Brook.
Yeah, I agree. Well stated.
Yeah, and then not only that, this project has received funding from 319 grant, which is a state grant for that same reason. They understand what the potential positive impacts to Unquity Brook this project can have as an outcome. So it's a very it's a very difficult grant to receive. And we have been, as the town of Milton, we have been very fortunate to receive this grant for this construction.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, I know this topography very well. I spent years going way back as a student at Collycott and Cunningham before the new construction. I'm aware and familiar with the changes that have taken place in the area since the new schools were built. I know the pathways in there. I know Century Avenue, Pleasant Street, and so on down the line. We have to remember that this is at the crest of a hill coming up Pleasant into Edgehill Road. So you have an extreme amount of water flow that's coming off that entire area into Unquity Brook ultimately. So this would be a major mitigation improvement with respect to the water flow that's coming off the roadways, parking lots, et cetera, in that particular area. By that, I mean the larger neighborhood.
Yep, that's represented here. You can see the 32-acre drainage system that's being diverted through the piped system. And then the lighter blue areas are areas that are being captured over land. So we've got about 32 acres here of this upland neighborhood that will be treated now that are not currently treated beyond a catch basin.
So it's a very significant area that's going to be treated.
40 acres.
Sounds like a good plan. Any questions from commissioners? Is there any, and I mean to speak so quickly, but it may be appropriate to do a site walk. We could do it quickly, so it's not a question of slowing down the process. I would like to site walk. I've certainly been there in the past, but I think it might be beneficial to the commission and to the public if we had a public meeting on site. Does anybody else think
like
that's
that.
appropriate?
Yep, agree.
All right, how about we can move quickly, and Marina, we won't slow down the process at all by this, because we could actually do it this Saturday. As long as we get the public notice out, we need 48 hours. We'd have to notice it tomorrow, which we can do. We could do it this Saturday or the next Saturday. I think this Saturday is the 18th. The following Saturday is the 25th. Is there a consensus that the site walk is appropriate?
We should do it. We always do one.
No. Just looking for a consensus, Tom.
John, this is Hans. I'm not available this Saturday. I would like to do the site walk though.
Can you do the 25th?
I believe so, yes.
That's great. I can do the 25th, Ingrid.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my calendar right now. Yes, I can do the 25th.
Okay, Arthur?
I'm not available that day. Unfortunately, I'm available the 18th, but I could sidewalk it again. We've been up there in the past, Mr. Chairman, if I remember correctly.
We have been there.
Past several years, and I could go and do an independent sidewalk. I'd be happy to do that.
All right. So we've got 3 for the 25th.
I could do the 18th as well. Tomorrow. I mean, this Saturday.
Right, but Hans.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot, and I know that Arthur is well familiar with it. He used to walk those paths, I think, back in the day. Todd, are you around?
On which day?
Well, either day, but it looks like to accommodate Hans, and I'm not picking Hans over.
Yeah, no.
Arthur's familiar with it. Could you do the 25th?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right.
I don't think of any problems right now.
All right, Wendy?
Unfortunately, due to February vacation, I'll be out of town the next 2 weekends.
Okay.
I'm sad to miss the site walk, but I trust my colleagues.
All right, so now I'm counting people here. So we've got Hans for the 25th, Arthur for the 18th. I can do either one. Ingrid, you can do the 25th.
I can do either one, yeah.
Tom?
Either one, I think.
Tom, do you have to recuse yourself for this?
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, I was asked to provide some information, but I don't think any decision would have a financial impact on me.
I'm not the attorney.
Well, yeah, there's certainly no financial interest in it. So that takes care of, the big conflict issue. But my only concern was, the survival rate of the trees on the standing water. But I think your expertise is important in that area. Although I don't think that you think much of Norway maples. So, and that's what's there.
I like them.
I hope you're not going to sacrifice my Norway maples.
They are an upland tree.
Okay, I got you.
And yes, there will be water that first half inch that they're not getting now. But it's just my observation that occasional wetting is not a problem for most trees. In fact, when you're trying to plant a tree, you have to do it. At any rate, I could be wrong. It's my estimate that they won't be harmed.
Well, actually, maples in general are often recommended for rain gardens, which essentially that's kind of what we're talking about here, just on a much larger scale. I'm guessing that Norway maples would be fine. They're usually on the do not plant list for rain garden guidance just because they're invasive. But maybe we could just add a recommendation that if any of the Norway maples were to perish, that they be replaced with natives.
And or wetland trees. At least fact wet.
Yes.
But it doesn't sound like, John, if the ground is so sandy, it's not going to hold water long.
Right.
Well, I understand that. I understand that. I'm just,
So
you know,
I think
Jim's
Tom,
right.
I think the trees will be okay. If you got sandy soils, they're not going to really be saturated for long.
Understood. And I know there's what, 4 feet between groundwater elevation?
5 feet, she said, I believe.
Yeah, the closest was 5 feet.
All right, understood. Well, it looks like Wendy can't make it. Everybody except for Arthur can make the 25th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a quorum. Arthur, is that okay if we do it on the 25th without you?
That's fine. And as I said, I walk that area periodically, and I'll be happy to walk up again and do a site walk on the 18th.
Perfect. Thank you. So can we meet, Marina, is that doable for you and perhaps Jen or whomever wants to be there?
Yes,
On
I
the
can
25th.
be there. I can be there. I think Jen, maybe I will work out schedule with Jen. Could it be in the morning?
Yes.
It's gonna be in the morning.
Absolutely. Now, Marina, you can cast a deciding vote here. Would you prefer 8 o'clock or 8:30?
8:30, please.
Oh, Wendy, you must have gotten to her.
Wendy, I was gonna pick 6.
I know. You live in a different time zone, Todd.
All right, 8:30 on Saturday, the 25th. We will meet, where shall we meet? In the
Is it rain or shine?
rain or shine, yes.
Or snow.
We'll meet at Cunningham.
Right at the, on the back, coming in off of the Pleasant Street side in Cunningham and back of the school?
Yes, there is a parking lot and you can all park your vehicles over here and then we can walk down Mary Trail. I believe it's named after a teacher. So we can walk there.
So is that off of Edge Hill? Is that the main?
Off of 80 Edge Hill, correct.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think you come in off of, you're going on that side?
Jen, do you have that video I showed you? That's a really nice video so they can see where we're gonna meet.
I couldn't find the video on the web. Was it on the website?
It was on the PowerPoint that I sent you.
Oh, I only got the link to the website, so I'm sorry.
I have it.
I thought the direct access to the parking lot was off of Pleasant Street. Where the marks, no, move the cursor to the left.
There's 2 access points. I think Marina is pointing out kind of parking back here behind the school where the swale is, and there's a trailhead right here we can drop down in.
Okay.
And there is also access off Pleasant, but there's more parking up here by the school.
John, the last time we did a sidewalk, we parked exactly where the cursor was pointing in that driveway and along the woodland.
Okay. All right. I always just went in off of Pleasant Street. What's the name of that street there? McKinnon Ave?
Yes, to the
And
left.
it goes right back to Cunningham, off of Pleasant.
Oh, here, McKinnon.
Yeah, it goes right to where those spaces are. But no, we'll meet where you indicated, Marina. So we'll go in next to Collycott.
Yeah, it just it could be slippery, so I'm sure you all know wear safe shoes.
Okay. All right. That's perfect. Thanks for the advice.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And we'll see you on Saturday morning at 8:30 on the 25th.
On 25th. Sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks,
all of your
everyone.
time and excellent questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Jen.
Bye.
Okay, next on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability at 76 Forbes Road. Yeah, Marion, are you presenting with us? And I know Ms. Dunn is here as well.
And Ellen Dunn is here with me.
Oh, great.
Sure. So I'll go ahead if you'd like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
This application is basically about a tree having been removed without prior consultation with the commission. I've provided some WPA Form 1 request for determination of applicability. We provided a plan, which is actually a site plan from the Milton Hill Development Subdivision, but it's a very detailed site plan that has wetlands lines. And I've marked with an X on the plan where the tree is. It's along Milton Hill Road. It's at the intersection of the Dunn property and the property to the right, and then the Milton Hill subdivision, and it's on the Dunn property side of that roadway, Milton Hill Road. So the issue here is that in October, first of all, Ellen Dunn inherited this property this year. Her father died last spring, and I think that you've probably been on a site walk for the Milton Hill development subdivision. I'm sure there's all kinds of issues because there are wetlands lines there. I'm not sure how familiar or how much you remember that, but this particular tree was tilting or leaning, as partly uprooted, and Ellen thought that it was dangerous and should be removed, and called Walnut Tree Company to come and take it down, which they did. But then she realized, and also I think one neighbor told her and also called the commission to say that this tree shouldn't come down without prior consultation with the commission. Well, the tree is down. So we're here tonight to say that we acknowledge that, or she does, the tree certainly looks like it's in your area of jurisdiction, and we just want to know what we need to do. So I think that Ellen is prepared to plant additional trees on her property as directed. Any plan really that you feel is suitable. The black walnut tree, according to Walnut Tree Company, was in poor condition and you know, should have been taken down, but the procedure is that you're supposed to come to the commission first and discuss the conditions for doing that. There is one other issue. Steve Ivas did take a look at the property. I don't believe he's at your meeting tonight, but he talked to me, has talked to Ellen Dunn. And one of the things he pointed out is that it looks like probably Ellen Dunn's father was composting leaves and grass along the back of a wide lawn that's in back of their house. It's a ranch house. And that area along the edge at one point is probably also, at least Steve thought it might be in this area of jurisdiction. So the question here is, nothing's been composted there. The very most recent time would have been last spring. Mr. Dunn passed away last spring. So I don't know. I looked at the property. I could see some mounds of kind of composted, semi-composted grass. Steve Ivas suggested maybe some of that should be removed. So it's a secondary issue. But my question to you tonight is, this is plant material. It's partly composted. If you want some part of it removed, Ellen is hiring John Driscoll, and John suggested that any removal should be done in the spring when the ground isn't frozen. But I'm not sure to what extent you should dig up composted material and disturb it further. So I'm a little bit puzzled about that, exactly what to do. But the main question we're here for tonight is to ask you what we should do for mitigation for removing the tree, since we did not consult the commission beforehand.
Well, I think the easiest way to respond to this is, I always look for the path of least resistance. And I see in your letter, Marion, that Ms. Dunn is, and I should say, Ms. Dunn, our condolences for the passing of your dad. So I know it must be a difficult time for you. So we appreciate you coming in and coming to the commission to rectify this problem. The easiest way to do it is to just conform with or comply with our performance standard, and to match the circumference of the tree that was removed by new plantings. Now, I'm just eyeballing the picture. I have no idea if that's, 16, 18, let me just say if it's 18 inches, and I know it's split, but let me just make it up. That would be 6 3-inch trees, or, you can divide it any way you want. 6 3-inches or 3 6-inch trees, or maybe it's 15 inches, it's 3 5-inch trees, or whatever the circumference is. And our magic tape measure person is Steve Ivas, and I think he's away until March 4th. I know it's the first week in March. But he'll be here at our next meeting. But if you're going to plant anyway, and I know in your letter, the question came up as to, do you have to put it in the same area? No, you can, follow your own heart and put the trees where you want them. You can consult a landscape architect if you want, or you can put them anywhere you want on the property. And it's as long as it's, a native species. It sounds like you wanted to do that anyway.
Yes.
That would keep you happy and keep us happy if you just matched the circumference of the tree that was removed.
Now, I don't know if, I'm not even sure whether the trunk is still there. There's a picture of it that we gave you.
It looks like a stump and the trunk just laying beside the stump.
Right.
And I would say the stump is not any more than 12 inches, looking at the picture.
Okay, well, let's just say it is 15 or 16. If you were to say 6 3-inch trees would be planted somewhere on the property, not necessarily in the area where the tree was taken down. We're perfectly willing to do that, or some variation that adds up to the same amount of inches. And if you want, we could report back as to, because there's no plan yet for where they will go. I think Ellen Dunn has been looking at possible locations, and she has 2 trees that have died over on the other side of her property that she'd like to replace. But we could give you, just as a follow-up to this meeting, we could provide for the commission a sketch plan that shows the types of trees and the locations, and the size being a minimum of 3 inches, I guess. And we'd say a minimum of 6 trees. That could be a proposal, and then you could, if you accept that, that means we have a plan that we can act on resulting from this meeting. I just like to avoid having to come back for more meetings just for this one tree, but whatever you think.
No, sure. If this is an RDA, so is it? It's listed.
It is an, I mean, I filed an RDA. Steve requested that I do that. You can see that we haven't gone out and hired a separate engineer to delineate, because we already have a plan directly adjacent to where this tree was removed that shows wetlands lines. So I felt that was sufficient for the commission to be able to determine the tree within the area.
Right, and we've been out there very recently, and for the public's benefit, we had a site walk there just a couple of months ago. So that, Mary, that's fine. I think we could consider this an RDA, accept the sort of the conceptual plan with a sketch plan to be submitted later.
Okay.
And I'm not, Tom, your eyesight's probably better than mine in terms of the circumference, but if you're happy planting 6 3-inch trees, or you want to make it 15 inches and plant 5, that would be acceptable to me, because I really don't know. I was looking for something that we could divide by 3.
Does anybody have a picture if it was real rotted, the center of it?
Well, we did provide a picture in the material of the trunk.
Doesn't look rotted. Yeah.
It doesn't look rotted. For some reason, the tree
looks like a happy tree
over. The roots had started to pull up. I think.
Oh, okay, I got you. It was coming out of the ground.
Yes, and it's hanging over Milton. It's hanging over the abutter's private driveway, basically. Okay. So this was did look like a safety issue. I think if I'd met with you beforehand, you would have concluded probably that it should be taken down. The problem is we don't have the tree in front of us anymore, so we can't measure it. But we can estimate, and estimate generously. So
Tom thinks it's what, 12 inches, Tom?
I would say diameter. And Marion, you said the tree is not around. Was the stump removed?
Yeah. By the time I got involved, the area was cleaned up, and this was in October. And I started preparing this application in January. We have the pictures. We have the letter from Walnut Tree. We asked them to describe why they, what the work was and what the tree was, black walnut tree. But I didn't see anything beforehand.
Did you say black locust before?
I'm sorry, black locust. I keep calling it a black walnut. It's a black locust. Yeah, whatever it says in the letter. Sorry.
Just eyeballing it, I would say is for diameter, it's not going to be any more than 12 inches. So right. I like this.
The formula is circumference. Yeah.
Tom, I was talking circumference.
Right.
I was not talking diameter. Okay.
Yeah, it's easier for me to say diameter. That just seems more significant to me. At any rate, of course, if it's 12 inches of diameter, it'd be
a lot more than 18 inches.
Yeah, right.
See, Marion, he thought he was on your side.
Well, I just want to know what you want us to do. Honestly, I mean, Ellen and I have talked about this. There's a lot of other things she's dealing with. So, We just like
Isn't
to,
our rule that whatever inches of either circumference or diameter are lost will be replaced with equivalent trees? Is that our rule?
Yes, it was draft written as circumference, but mathematically it doesn't matter as long as you match the sum.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so tell me what the sum is.
It's 12 inches.
But that's the diameter.
Yeah.
Right,
that's-
but
So
at
you would
the
need
end of the day,
four-
John, it comes out the
4
same.
trees of 3-inch diameter.
4 3-inch trees would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 3-inch trees. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's a minimum. She may plant more, you know, we'll give you a plan. I hopefully we'll have it to, you know, I'll just turn it into you before the next hearing, hopefully in March, but whenever she has the plan ready. And if there's any issue with it, the commission can ask us to come back. But I think it sounds like we understand what you want. We know they have to be native trees. We'll tell you what species they are and what the sizes of the trees being planted are, and they should add up to 4 3-inch, 4 times 3, so whatever. Can you also address for me though, or can you clarify for me what the issue is with composted materials? I know you can't dump compost in the middle of a stream bed or something like that. Is there a problem with, she's going to have a landscaper cutting her lawn from here on in. And I mean, John Driscoll generally removes leaves and grass, but let's say she decides to do her lawn herself and she wants to compost again in the future. What's the rule? I mean, you know, how should she, what should she think
You
about?
can't fill the wetlands.
Okay, well, nobody's been filling the wetlands. There's
A lot of people do around town.
I know they do, and I know of instances of that. But this is a little pile of, it looks like a little mound of grass and leaves along the edge of the lawn, which is up above where the line, the way this topography of her yard works is there's a big grass area in back of her house, slopes down gradually, and then it ends basically, and then it goes down into kind of a gully and goes back up to Milton Hill Road. And the edge of Milton Hill Road is where the tree was that was removed. So this is on the other side of the gully. It's on the grass side. But, you know, she hasn't done a whole wetlands plan for her property. I mean, should she, it just, you know, I just don't know whether there's anything wrong with where that compost
So
is.
if there's the issue with composted and composted material is whether there's presence of invasive species, seeds and such in there, or pesticides. So since we don't know, certainly the safest way to do it would be to remove it. But those are really the issues. If
you
you're
also want to know that the compost is not being carried down the hill when a cloudburst comes. And you can probably see that. You can just go and look at it and see if any material has been lost, as if the downslope side of the compost is ragged, where
being washed away, something like that.
Yeah. Once it goes into the gully, it might continue down the hill. It's generally the case all over Milton Hill that the soils are not at all absorbent. They're very tight tills. So where water runs down Milton Hill, it doesn't soak in. It just makes a gully down the hill.
So it's clay? You're saying there's a lot of
that's
clay
right.
in there?
And I would say that as long as that compost is not being swept into the gully, it's probably not doing any harm at all. Although I don't mean to argue with what Ingrid said about fertilizers and invasives. At any rate, that's sort of my ballpark idea.
I guess if I might just say one thing, I understand that issue, incidentally. I don't know what kinds of treatment they may have been using on the lawn, and neither does Ellen. But if you start to dig up the compost area and sort of start trying to remove it, I mean, I could see taking really loose, fresh material that's still on the top. John Driscoll is right now planning to remove that. I wanted you to tell me whether it's even wise to dig down, because then you're disturbing composted material and you're sort of creating an open surface that water can now wash off of. See what I'm saying?
Marion, you're giving us a hypothetical. We don't have anything before us. We have no idea what Steve Ivers saw or said. it may require removal, but we don't know conceptually. And
I don't either.
we
He
don't
said it,
have
so I
anything
don't know what to
before
do.
us.
Yeah, okay, well, let's just leave it. And when Steve's back, if, maybe he can help us understand what it was he was talking about. I just don't want her to touch anything until I have guidance from you. That's what I'm trying to ask about.
My suggestion is we wait for Steve to come back, is other than like a hypothetical discussion, I'm not really sure that we've got anything before us.
Okay, all right, fine. That's fine. And that's helpful.
All right, but we do have an RDA. So my suggestion is, I think everybody's comfortable with replacing 4 3-inch trees for a diameter. Now I'm talking about, not circumference, diameter.
Yeah.
And they can be planted anywhere on your property. They will be native species, and there's a huge selection of different kinds of trees. And I'm sure Marion can help you, Ms. Dunn, but so can Ingrid or Wendy or Hans or Tom Palmer. Everybody but me. I'd probably be planting Norway maples. So I know that's bad. I get it. But I'm just saying, we'll help you if you need anything. But what I suggest that we do right now is to a motion to issue a negative determination contingent upon 2 things: replacement of, by way of diameter, 4 3-inch trees on your property, and they have to be native species. And I think that will resolve the current issue. And I think if I'm reading the audience correctly, I think everybody will be happy with that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, is there such a motion to issue a negative determination on the basis that we get a sketch plan too? If you could submit that when your plan is done, and before the work is actually done, but
sure.
We're not in a rush and you can't plant right now anyway. So I think there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, okay, there's a second. Hans and Ingrid. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. I'm just looking at the screen here. Hans, how do you vote?
Yes.
Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ingrid, how do you vote?
Yes.
Todd, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. John Kiernan votes yes as well. That's unanimous. Ms. Dunn, thank you very much. Marion, as usual, thank you for your courtesy and excellence.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Next on the agenda is 56 Winthrop Street. Who do we have for 56?
Hi, myself, Laureen Murphy. I'm the property owner at 56 Winthrop Street. I submitted the request for determination. I live on the Pine Tree Brook.
Yes.
Looking to do some work to the exterior of my house, roof, siding, windows, front door, back door, back deck, which would be the closest point to the brook, although we are removing the decking, making it smaller, not bigger, so we will not be getting any closer to the brook. And then extending our front porch to the full length of the house instead of just being a small front porch. So I guess the concern is that we could end up with construction debris in the brook.
Yes, indeed. We just went through that on one of your neighbors. Not on Winthrop Street, but
Audubon.
Yeah, yes. Backing up, and the roof material did become a problem.
Okay.
There was an issue for us. But now let me ask you this. It looks like there's a ton of work being done to your house. And I appreciate the fact that you're shrinking the deck and the farmer's porch is going on the street side away from the Pine Brook. But you're putting new siding on, new roof. It looks like a lot of work. So, no, and I see all of the proposals and estimates you've got. You're doing a lot of work.
Yeah, needs a lot of work.
It is. And I choked when I saw all the prices. I go, ooh.
Don't remind me.
So, but I'm not sure why it's not a notice of intent. And I think the difference is, I don't think it's huge. It might be another $100 or something. I'm not sure what the fee difference is, but I'm just curious as to why it's an RDA and not a notice of intent.
Because when I called and asked, this is what they told me to do. I followed the instructions.
Gotcha. Okay. Good answer.
Just a quick question there. Are you doing anything in the driveway? Are you doing anything to impervious surfaces, or is it just the structure of the deck, I guess, on the wetland side?
Yeah, deck on the wetland side. And like I said, it is getting smaller.
Yeah, the only question it's just on the farmer's porch, which is on the street side, away from the brook, which is good. But the one thing that I stumbled over, it says install, this is the footings that I'm talking about. Install new footings for deck as specified. Now, I know it says deck, but you're talking about the farmer's porch in the front.
Yes.
It says install new footings for deck as specified. If possible, we will install techno post footings, a minimally invasive no digging technology that is code approved and allows for a quick and seamless preparation. I was curious, if possible. If it's not possible, then what are the footings? Because if you're gonna put a footing in, you got to dig down and get below the frost line and things like that. So I'm not sure I got a little nervous when I saw if possible, because I don't know how much excavation work you have to do for this farmer's porch.
Yeah, I can't really answer that. I can ask the contractor why the if possible was there. I was under the impression he was doing it the way you just described, no digging. He described it to me as something that seems to me like drilling them in.
Yeah, so Todd, you would know this better than
Yeah, you can just
probably.
Yeah, he just put them on a bobcat and it spins them in the ground, so you don't have to do any digging, as long as you don't hit rock.
Is that what the if possible is about? I know you're guessing here.
That's what I think he's doing.
Okay, because if he hits rock, it doesn't work.
Yeah, if it hits rock, it won't spin in.
All right. Yeah,
but they do work. They do work pretty good. If the ground's not ledge, it'll drive it in.
Probably not ledge in that area.
Yeah, you'd know more than me on that, Tom. I don't know up that area. But it's like a big drill bit, John. It just screws into the ground.
All right. Well, if this, I don't know, this really should not be an RDA, but I'm trying to avoid putting form over substance. But we're going to have some significant erosion controls here because you're right next to a perennial stream and you're close to it. But I do appreciate the fact that the deck is smaller and the farmer's porch is on the other side. But I do worry about the roof debris coming off of the new roof, and you're putting new siding on the house. That's a lot of work.
What if we gave them some rules on it and they can't commence work without a meeting with us?
Well, we do that anyway.
I understand that, but that way, if he meets with Steve, he knows what the rules are.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's other than the deck, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of earth moving and site work and that stuff. It's more like remodeling other than the pilings for the deck.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff taken alone, like to replace a roof or replace windows, wouldn't require an NOI or RDA filing.
That's kind of, I feel what Hans is thinking. I agree with him.
All right, I'm just trying to think back on our Audubon Road. In fact, Hans, didn't you go down and look at that yourself?
I did, and that was a full home renovation. I mean, they gutted the entire, and not only that, but they also tore up the entire lawn. I mean, that was.
Did they do an addition on that one?
No, it wasn't an addition.
I don't recall, but like I said,
well, we're going to have heavy equipment in the back, aren't we? And around the side.
Well, if they're gonna use the Bobcat to screw in those pilings, that'll be the end of it for that.
But that can be conditioned.
That's in the front of the house.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, it is, but it's still within 100 feet. Never mind the 200 feet, Wendy. It's within 100 feet. But I'm not trying to throw up roadblocks here. But
I know that
we've got some significant conditions, and we have to say it's a negative RDA conditioned upon a whole list of them.
Wouldn't it be a positive RDA with conditions?
No, the positive RDA means you got to file.
You have to file an NOI.
Oh, right. It should have been done in the first place, but I'm sensitive to the fact, Maureen, that you were told to file an RDA. I get it. I get it.
I just wonder what additional information would be required under an NOI that hasn't already been provided, aside from an erosion control plan.
Well, that's my biggest fear, that we don't have another Audubon. That's why I mentioned it. But that's not to say that we can't do this. We could do a negative RDA, but there'll be a whole string of conditions. Right. And Maureen, you probably don't even know what we're talking about right now.
One of the houses that was renovated on Audubon, and it took a little while for it to be renovated. It was, I believe it was completely gutted. I think it was right on the corner, the turn.
Yeah, gray shape. They added a front porch. Yes.
I think so. Yeah. They
changed the staircase in the back.
Yeah.
They moved
the debris was going everywhere.
Right.
Okay.
One of the big things you want to talk with these contractors is they let stuff blow all over the place. They don't pick up the mess, and that gets you in trouble. You've got to make sure you're watching them.
And I guess I'll ask you this: Are you going to be in the home while this renovation is going on? Is somebody going to be there on a regular basis?
Yeah, I am probably not going to be in the home because we have two dogs that will go crazy, but my husband will be here. I do not want to see this mess, and I will it all the time because I'll want to know what it's going to look like. But my husband will be staying here. They tell me it will take a total of 2 weeks.
So John, I think if we
it's controlling the mess.
Sorry.
Hans is right. As long as someone makes it very clear and someone watches it every day that any trash that blows, the stuff gets picked up and cleaned up.
Right. And apropos of your comment, Todd, about having a meeting, we're actually going to change, or we've been talking about changing our forms, because that pre-construction meeting is just got to be implemented in every single case.
Everyone, John. Everyone.
Oh, yeah. But the form has to change.
Yeah.
We get it. So all right. So the RDA, we've got erosion controls at the brook, and it's not just. I guess we're going to need I don't know, silt fence, something that is going to stop the shingles from blowing into the brook. And I don't know if we need, like on the scaffolding or whatever you have on the side of the house when you're tearing up off the shingles, we've got to have some mechanism for keeping those shingles out of the brook. And is that the silt fence?
That's not going to be really high enough, John. I mean, in the conditions, it's got to be as the shingles come off, they go in a dumpster. They don't go in the yard. They go in the dumpster. That's got to be a condition right there and ended. Because otherwise, they'll just throw them on the ground, not again. They don't care. They just want to get the job done fast, but that becomes another problem. As they come down, they got to go in the dumpster.
Okay. Erosion controls at the brook, shingles directly into the dumpster, not on the ground. And Laureen, you all get this in writing, but we'd like to have a pre-construction meeting with your contractor.
Okay.
And he'll have to meet with our agent, Steve Ivas, who will return first week in March. So he's not too far away. Just slowing down because I want to take notes. So that the contractor has to know of all these issues. And I don't really know what kind of equipment will be required to, if they're adding siding to your house, are they taking off any siding?
Taking off wood shingles and replacing it with siding.
What kind of siding, do you know?
Yes, you do. Hang on, I'll find it. Roof, demo deck. Harvey Tribute new construction windows.
Yeah.
It's Dave Hardy siding.
So it's Hardy plank.
Yes.
Okay. That, John, Hardy plank will not blow around. It's a cement board. It's heavy.
Yeah, I've got some.
Yeah, it doesn't blow around.
It's really mostly during the demo or removal work where you have to keep control of that.
Same with the shingles. As they come off, they got to go in the dumpster so they don't blow around. And at the construction meeting, John, homeowners should be there as well as the contractor.
And so daily cleaning are the kind of things that we'd be looking for. So, you know, cleaning up any miscellaneous debris, sweeping, and just making sure that you don't see things piling up. And then in terms of the exposure to the brook itself, I'm looking at the plan, it doesn't look like the back of your property faces directly on the brook. It looks like it kind of kitty corners on it.
Yeah, that back right corner.
And is there a fence along there, or what's the separation between?
There is a fence.
There's a fence. Any landscaping or anything that's through there? Anything that'll help to prevent stuff from going over there?
No, there's some
Not really.
No,
Okay.
not. There's some smaller trees over there, but I don't think it's anything that will provide a barrier.
All right, yeah, so you may want to consider just a small line of silt fence just to keep anything that does blow.
All right, we don't anticipate, I mean, we don't need any straw wattles or, we're not worried about the soil eroding into the brook, right?
Yeah, could even be just right. We are
worried about the shingles and debris coming off.
Yeah.
But a silt fence would do both. But is
I think the silt fence is a good idea, John.
Is it high enough?
Well, it's high enough. A construction fence is only going to be a couple feet high. That's not going to stop something from blowing, but the silk fence will keep anything if there's a rain and a little bit of debris wants to wash or anything.
Okay.
Lorraine, a question, Mr. Chairman. The nature of the fence along the brook, its height, what it's made out of? Is it chain link, wood?
No, it's metal, black metal. It's not chain link. It's not solid. It has probably 3 or 4 inches between each slat.
Okay, so it's wrought iron type?
Yes.
Okay, about how high, please?
Probably it's at least 5 feet. It's my height.
Thank you. Gotcha. Good measurement.
All right, well, the silt fence has to be buried. Todd, this really goes to you. The silt fence is buried to prevent any erosion. But,
correct.
What about, putting something on this fence?
You mean like an orange net that they use for construction?
Yeah.
You can do that. Like I said, the squares in that, though, are not that small for holding anything just say you got rain and they pull the shingles off, there's paint chips or whatever on the ground, the silk fence holds it.
All right, so we'll go with the silk fence. Okay.
I say
you okay that with Arthur? Because you were asking about the fence.
Yes, I'm fine with it. And I agree with Todd on the other fence. The diameter of the holes, wood-borne material is going to go through that.
I mean, ideally, John, to put that fence right against the wrought iron fence would be perfect.
Yeah, as long as you can bury it, but I don't know what the fence is in, because is that an armored bank there? Laureen, is that like a concrete side to the brook?
No, it's dirt.
It's dirt, okay. All right, so you could, if it's dirt, then you could put the silt fence right up next to the right up next to the fence.
And that would just need to be in that back corner of the fence that is facing the brook directly.
Correct.
I would wrap the backyard, John.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'd wrap the backyard with that. I'm looking at the plan, Laureen, and the problem, I know what you just said, but the problem is that's only like 15 feet.
Yes.
And if the wind picks up the shingles, they're going to go to the right of that and to the left of that. So you need to wrap your backyard, basically.
Okay.
This is not a huge cost item.
It's not a big thing to do. It's really not.
When you're saying wrap the backyard, you're not just looking at the rear perimeter, you're looking at the rear perimeter, the angle along Pine Tree Brook, and up just to where the new deck is going to go?
Yes.
Inside?
You are correct. To the deck, yes.
Okay.
The back deck.
So that Laureen understands what we mean by backyard.
And is this something that a contractor would normally put for us?
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's easy. It is.
Maureen, I put it up. Maureen, I put it up myself all the time. It's not a big thing. It's not.
You can hire them, if you want.
No, I don't want to do anymore. It's really not a big thing to deal with.
Okay.
And the roll of fence, I think, is like $100.
Okay.
A roll is 100 feet.
And that's probably enough because my whole backyard is not much more than 100 feet.
Let me put it to you this way. That silt fence, if anything washes into that brook, costs you a lot more money to clean than deal with that fence.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, and the other thing, Lauren, so that you know this, you can't store equipment. We were talking about a bobcat trying to spin those, whatever they're like sonotubes, I guess.
Yeah.
To support your front porch. You can't store, or the contractor cannot store that heavy equipment, the bobcat, on your property overnight, and they can't refuel overnight. They can use it, but they have to get it out of there, at night.
Okay.
Okay. But that's very standard. All the contractors are accustomed to that, and there's nothing new or special about that. But that's one of our standard conditions.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, folks?
Nope. Not here.
All right. So with those conditions.
Oh, hold on, John. You have it set up that there'll be a pre-construction meeting, right?
Oh, sure. Pre-construction meeting, both with Steve Ivis and the homeowner and the contractor.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yep, definitely get that. All right. Now, did you follow all that, Maureen?
Yes, I took notes.
Okay. All right. Good. And you'll get it in writing as well. So with those conditions, is there a motion to issue a negative determination for the RDA, but it's conditioned upon those special conditions that we just listed?
I move that we issue a negative RDA with conditions.
All right. Second?
Aye.
Any discussion? You know what? Let me stop us right there, because I didn't even ask if there are any abutters or members of the public that have a comment or a question. Hearing none, we'll move forward. There's no discussion among commissioners, so we'll move to a roll call vote. And I'm just looking across the top. Hans, how do you vote? I can't hear you. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Todd, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ingrid, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And John Cannon, I vote yes as well. That's unanimous. So if you stay in touch with Kathy Bowen, Lauren, she will have this. It probably won't get signed for a few days. She'll probably finish it pretty quickly. But it may take a few days to get us all into town hall or the DPW yard rather to sign it.
Okay.
When do you have any construction plans right now?
No, it was supposed to be in the fall, but we hit this little roadblock. So no, just waiting on this process and then they'll be ready to start.
Okay, all right. Well, you should be good to go. And Kathy Bowen is your, your lifeline, your communicator there. She'll keep you on the straight and narrow. Okay.
Awesome. Has been great so far. So thank you.
Good. Thanks, Lorraine, very much. All right. Next on the agenda, we have, and I think this is our last for the night. It is a request for certificate of compliance, 58 Churches Lane. Do we have a presenter? I think so. And actually, I talked.
Sir, if you're trying to speak, you might be muted.
How is that? Can you hear me?
Tom, we
Yes.
can.
Oh, yeah, this is Thomas Doherty, 58 Churchill's Lane.
Ah, great, thanks.
Hi, thank you for having me attend. So this is a request for a certificate of compliance, 58 Churchill's Lane, with respect to a bridge that's on a portion of a private right-of-way that I own. There was a notice of intent that was filed back in April of 1995. And in connection with that, Units Engineering provided a plan of land and a bridge diagram. And then I think it was James Green, town civil engineer, inspected. And then there was a public hearing in May, all of this in 1995. And I'm not sure why, but there was not then at the next and succeeding step to seek a certificate of compliance. And I only became aware of that in 2022, 20 years later. So then what I did was get in touch with Hoyt Land Surveying. Units is not in business anymore. And asked them then to provide existing conditions plan and an as-built diagram and some photographs. And then they also provided a letter of recommendation for approval of the certificate of compliance, which I filed, and a Form 8A as well, and those photos. It all has to do with a gutter drain. And if, I'm sure many of you will know Milton Hill, but you'll know that on Churchill's Lane, you go back to 1900 or so, the Churchill family owned it in large part. 58 Churchill's Lane was the carriage house and the caretaker's house for both 40, what's now 40 Churchill's Lane above that, which is a big brick building, and also my home, 247 Adams Street, which was Helen Churchill's house. That was all part of their one family property. And then the short story is that in the 1930s, the big brick house on 40 Churchill's Lane was built. It has a south facing, about 2.5 story up gutter that then there's a gutter drain that goes down from that gutter and that goes under the ground and to the part of the right-of-way area there, where then that drain, that gutter drain, when it rains, will pass water onto that area. And lastly, at one point, the 40 and 58 Churchill's Lane were owned together by the Churchills, but subsequently, the ownership was divided. Jerry Williams, if you remember the talk show host, he owned both, but then his wife became the owner of 58, and then she decided to sell it. And I bought that in 1994, 95. It abuts my land at 247 Adams Street, and that's the reason for the my use of the right of way. And the point of the bridge is that when it rains, after it rains, it's muddy. the water dissipates. There isn't any standing water. It's the fact that if you're going across that, whether you're, in that case it was, high school children is going to school and back, or myself, or even I have a little truck, a Toyota pickup truck. You take that across and it would just create mud. So that's the purpose of it. And then you'll see in the photographs, the bridge there, and the diagram will show it's 10 feet by about 50 feet. And there's one of the photographs that shows looking at it from uphill, looking downhill. You'll see the tree and you'll see the bridge there. It's really on the left side of that tree where the pipe, and you can see the Hoyt surveying, which it says that's where it talks about a 6-inch PVC pipe. That's that drain, and it goes there. So that's the background and foreground of the request for the certificate of compliance.
Thank you, Tom. I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but I pulled the order of conditions that was issued back in May of 1995 and saw that I signed it. So I remember. I was there. A little scary. And the only special condition was additional condition. It says as follows: the following items are permitted by this order of conditions: reconstruction of the gravel roadway, construction of bridge across the spring area, replacement of the private sewer line, and grading and landscaping of the former orchard area, and other land uphill of the gravel roadway. And that was signed by Don Neal, Craig McNaught, Eileen Anderson, and John Kiernan in the 8th day of May, 1995. So I looked at the map, the as-built that was submitted by Mr. Hoyt, and everything looks to be in order. I do have a question about the spring that the bridge goes over. Is it a spring? Is there water there under the bridge?
No. So what it is that if you looked, and it was the units plan said essentially an area where there's water, and so it isn't a spring. What it is it's the drain, and the water, when the rain comes through the drain, that drain ends right there, and the water from the gutter comes through. And if you look at the units, it's interesting. They had a note that said they were unable to find the outlet of the drain. So you put the two and two together. They did identify that there was water where the bridge would be, but they hadn't identified where the outlet of the drain is. And the outlet of the drain is, as shown in the Hoyt survey, where the bridge is. And, all right. And then as to there is a reference to gravel, but you'll see that we used the cobblestone, which is also allows the water to go through and is less likely to get shifted around rather than as the gravel would be. This is a little more stable, but still allows the water. And I don't mean the water having to do with the pipe. I mean rainwater. Any rainwater. If you look at the photographs of the approach to the bridge.
All right, understood. And I guess my last comment is that in the letter from Peter Hoyt, he does make the recommendation that we approve this, but what's critical for us and appropriate for the record, he says, and I'm quoting for the public's benefit, the as-built conditions as shown on the final as-built plan are in substantial compliance with the plans submitted with the notice of intent filed April 24th, 1995. And that's what's critical for us, so that the as-built does reflect substantial compliance with the plans upon which the original order of conditions was approved. Are there any questions from commission members? Tom? Anything?
No, I'm good.
All right. Arthur, does anybody feel a need to see this? I think the pictures are pretty clear. And the attestation from Mr. Hoyt is complies with our rules and regulations. So I entertain a motion. I should stop and ask, are there any abutters or members of the public that have a comment or a question? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the issuance of a certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Thanks, Ingrid. A second, Wendy. Let me just write it down. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, I'm just going across. Hans, how do you vote? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Arthur?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Wendy? And John Kiernan, I vote yes as well. That's unanimous, Mr. Doherty. Thank you very much for your patience and courtesy.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks. All right, and I think that concludes our business tonight. Additional business. There is one piece of additional business that I think I should address. Take me 30 seconds. And that is, I think it's in our packet, but actually I should state it because for the public's benefit, there was an appeal of our decision at 582 Blue Hill Avenue, and it went to the DEP. That's the project. It's a 40B project at 582.
Yep.
And that's before the DEP, and we received rather formal notice that on Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon, there'll be a site walk by the Massachusetts DEP officials. And the public is invited, and we are as well. I just want you all to note that if you have any interest in attending, that's the place, the date, and the time.
And run that by us again, John, please.
What, say again?
Want to run that?
Yeah, the date is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon.
Okay, 582.
At 582 Blue Hill Avenue.
Got it on my calendar. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. And what else? That's it. Anybody else with additional business? Oh, I did mention this at the very beginning, but I'll say it again. We have a special meeting, public meeting announced of the Milton Conservation Commission tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m., also via Zoom. The Zoom link is on the town website, and I think all the commission members have received a copy of the connection. And Sean, I think you did as well, I hope, if you're still with us.
I am, and I do have access. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. All right. And that I don't think will be very long. As I understand it, Sean will need Sean Rourke from the School Building Committee will need about 30 minutes. But there may be members of the public that wish to ask questions or make comments. So it certainly could be longer than that, but I don't expect a hugely lengthy process. Anybody else with additional business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Perfect. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Good night, all. Thanks. Thanks very much. All right. Thanks, Sean.